Hi, welcome back. This is Into the Infinite, and I'm Charlie, and so glad that you're here. And I have a very deep, pressing, existential question for you. What kind of duck do you want to be? It's taken so many takes to be able to say that without laughing. So, what kind of duck do you want to be? By the end of this video, you'll understand completely, but I just love starting there. So, here we go. What kind of duck do you want to be? In Toronto, there was an art installation that was this giant inflatable duck. It was wonderful and confusing, and it brought people together, as all art does. As all good art, I mean, good or bad art, I don't know. It's so objective, but so as all art does. And what was more interesting than its inflation was the way that it looked when it was deflated. So if you so desire, I recommend Googling, Toronto Harbor inflatable duck deflating. There are some photos, but you get the gist. People were, creating memes and saying, "Oh, same girl, same. It's a mood," as it was just like, which was funny on its own. But then the other night I was thinking about shame and how it deflates us, especially when we're trying to be creative, right? So it was like, it just pulls the air right out of you, and it's so visible. You feel like a giant duck sitting in a harbor that everyone's watching deflate and look ridiculous doing it. That's what shame does, right? Like, it makes you feel so visible, even if no one cares. You feel like everyone's eyes are on you, and it's like you can't, it's like what do they say? Like, you can't stop looking at the accident. Like, you're just like, as you know. But the reality is that's not actually happening. So I considered how, when we lose, shame takes all the air out of us, right? Like, it just, it disappears. I don't know how to make a balloon deflating sound. And based on my extensive repertoire of noises, I would rather not go there. So, but I thought about what we refill ourselves with, right? I thought about how we refill ourselves when we experience that deflation. And how we really don't have anything, we don't have anything to it, there's not that much of substance unless we really think about it and work on it, not meaning like I'm going to toil and do all this work. No, I'm just talking about making good choices. Like, it's easy. It's easy and ease and flow. Like, pick the oars up out of the boat and just float for a second. So I thought about how we fill ourselves with, superiority and pride and anger and frustration and, all these things to try and make us look good because we're a deflated duck in a harbor. Right? So we're trying to create an image of ourselves, which is so ego rooted and understandable if you're in pain, right? Like, if you think everyone can see you deflating in a harbor so visibly that it's all over social media and all these worst case scenarios are coming up, of course you're going to want to turn to things that will make you feel bigger than you do. And that's super duper what ego does, right? It's like, I think about it like bursting into, a scene in a movie where it's all hitting the fan and they're like, "I have arrived." Like, that's what the ego does. It's like, "I have arrived. You're long awaited. My steed is outside." Like, that's the kind of vibe that you get from it. And I would invite us, myself included. I was having this reflection and thought, that's kind of funny. What kind of duck do I want to be? So what do you want to refill yourself with, right? Social media has made it so easy to feel these things. And I don't post as much on my personal social media pages as I used to, just because I saw some of this happening and I was like, I'm out. And it was just a choice too, because social media but that's a whole other video. Let's earmark that for another time. But I don't go on social media as much because of this. It can be a place where we post our best moments, which are so exciting. We want to share all these things, and yes, but then we also feel the absence of the things that we're seeing other people experience if we haven't tended to our own vibration. And it's also just like information is coming at you a million miles an hour there. So if you haven't done the work to really put some good boundaries for yourself in place, it can feel so overwhelming. Like, it can, I envision, when they come to drop topsoil at people's houses and they just dump it in the driveway on a tarp, and you're just like underneath, you're like, "Oh shit." And I guess that wasn't meant to be a pun, but you can keep that one. You can just tuck it in your pocket and take it home with you. So what I'm really trying to say here is that it can be super overwhelming if we're not in a good place within, right? If we're not coming from heart and we're not centered, that can be super overwhelming. And I feel like social media has made it so easy for us to just go on and post and feel superior and tap into all of these things, right? That's just a place where I mention that so that if you're in that space and you're like, ooh, I'm going on social media and I'm doing that thing, it's not, don't beat yourself up over it. It's just sort of like, I think about these things as little messages from spirit where you get a mailbox and then you have like the flag that's up. So like those moments are just a flag that's up showing you that like you've got some mail to address. Just very neutral. That's all that it is. Don't go on this like, I'm going to beat myself up and do all the, stop. It's okay. It's fine. So with that being said, we have the choice, right? We can choose how we handle all of these things. We get to choose in every moment, and there are systems that we cannot choose. You know, as a trans person, I very get this. That's technical terms, by the way. Very get this. Oof. So what I'm trying to say is it's not systems, but we do get to choose our thoughts. You know, I get to decide if I'm going to let those systems reduce me. I get to decide whether I let people not getting my neurodivergence reduce me. I get to choose those things, right? And I think it's important that those are conversations that we have. That might be another video. So when future me, I'm so sorry for all the work that I'm making for you, but present me is having a blast. Yeah, so choosing, we get to choose, right? And it's important that we choose what we refill ourselves with, because we can refill it with superiority and turning to times when we feel big, you know, we feel like a mountain, when we really feel super small in here and we don't listen to in here. So I think a big part of it is tuning back into what's going on in here to really release that so that you can welcome in things that will fill you and sustain you in the long run, right? And it's a lifelong process. I'm learning, like I'm in my mid-30s and I'm learning this. I mean, it doesn't go away. Shame doesn't disappear. And it just finds new ways to express itself if you've worked on old stuff and healed old stuff. So it's really just about when people, it feels like people are like leaning on the doorbell. You have to learn to manage those triggers. And you also just have to be kind with yourself too, so that you can understand them without going, whoa, at first, right? I really hope that YouTube does not do a thumbnail or snapshot on that face, because it's been interesting some days. But choose. What kind of duck do you want to be? Do you want to be the duck that is deflated and filled up with crap that doesn't actually help it float, or, you know, move out of the harbor, or do anything that would feel good? Like, what kind of duck do you want to be? I'm not going to personify the duck that was in the harbor, because that's taking the metaphor too far. Some might argue that it's already there, but that's what I'm known for. So this is it though. What kind of duck do you want to be? Do you want to be one that chooses? Do you want to be one that befriends the feeling of shame so that you can feel it, experience it, and move past it? And so that it can stop blocking you creatively. You know, I think about creativity in terms of photography and writing, but it can take on so many forms. I'm not just talking about hard artwork. I'm talking about creativity at, with your friends, with your family, at work, everywhere that you go. You're a creator. That's what you do. You make things in the world every day. Sometimes they're not visible to you because it's starting up here. That's where the seed is planted, right? And sometimes it's planted here, and that's like an even more delicious feeling. But you're a creator regardless of whether you think you are. Some people are more obviously so, and that's, this maybe applies to them in our minds, like with a highlighter, like that's the one. But you can be a creator if you're just taking care of children, right? You made them. You're a creator, like hanging out with your pet. Like my cat is sleeping somewhere over here. You can't see her. She's just, oh, I love her so much. But I can be creative just taking care of her and watching her sleep. Like everything can be a moment of creation if you really truly let it be, because it can plant a seed for a future time where you put a thing into the world. And sometimes creating is just creating a good day for yourself too. So think about all of this in the context of creativity. It's really not just about art. It can be, it is. It's more pronounced for sure. And I think that art makes it undeniable as to whether you have blocks and to whether you're letting things flow too, right? So I think that's an important thing to kind of earmark in this conversation. Um, but yeah, what kind of duck do you want to be? We're at 10 minutes and the analogy carried all the way through. So I hope that it made you laugh and that it gave you some things to think about and that it made sense for where you are and where you find yourself, either, today, tomorrow, future, wherever you find yourself on the time-space continuum. I am so glad that you joined me here, though, in that. So thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you little ducks on the next one.